Good evening, traveler of quiet hours, and welcome to Nocturnal History. Wherever you are, curled beneath a warm blanket or listening as the world outside drifts into silence, this is your place to rest and wander back in time. Tonight, we'll follow the steady hands of a peasant in feudal Japan, climb sooty rooftops with a young chimney sweep in London, walk the midnight yards of industrial Manchester, and stand watch upon the misty cliffs of Dover. If you enjoy these gentle journeys through the past, I'd be grateful if you'd like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the lanterns of history glowing just a little longer. You rise before dawn in your thatched hut, the pale light of early spring slipping through bamboo slats. The air carries the faint scent of damp earth and emerging rice shoots, a promise of life to come. Your name is Takahiro, a fifth-generation peasant farmer in the province of Mino, and today you will guide your ox, Kintaro, down newly plowed terraces, each furrow turned under the watchful eye of the daimyo's magistrate. Though your life is bound by obligation and ritual, each day's labor shapes the land and, in turn, shapes the fortunes of lord and peasant alike. Your first task is the morning purification. You step outside and sprinkle your feet with water drawn from the household well, murmuring a quiet prayer to Inari Okami, patron of rice and prosperity. You dip your hands in the same water, lift them to your forehead, and bow twice. The ritual connects you to centuries of cultivators who believed that the very spirit of the rice paddy dwells in its water. A moment's reflection guides your hands and steadies your heart. After donning your simple hemp robe, stained and patched in places, you step into the courtyard to prepare Kintaro. The ox stands tethered by a leather yoke band, carved with the family crest. Two crossed reeds beneath a rising sun. You run your calloused palms along his flank, checking for signs of lameness. In a society where an ox's strength determines a village's survival, even a minor injury can spell disaster for many. Satisfied that Kintaro stands firm on all four hooves, you loosen the yoke band's latches and slip the yoke onto his shoulders. He snorts and stamps his hoof, impatient for the work ahead. Your plow is a simple but finely wrought iron share attached to a wooden beam of Japanese oak. It bears the carved signature of the village carpenter, your grandfather's brother, long since blind from rice chaff in his youth. The plow's surface is polished smooth from years of use, its iron edge honed razor sharp. You inspect each joint, the mortise and tenon connection between beam and share, the woven hemp binding that holds it fast, and the thin layer of tallow you applied last evening to prevent damp rot. A well-maintained plow glides through the muddy soil with grace. A neglected one can stumble and break under tension. Kintaro follows your lead as you guide the plow to the top of the first terrace. Each terrace is a shallow shelf cut into the mountainside, retaining water just deep enough to submerge the emerging rice. The slope's gradient must be exact, too steep, and water washes away the young shoots. Too shallow, and stagnant water invites pests. You stand at the plow's handles, brace your feet in the soft bank, and signal Kintaro with a gentle tug of the reins. The ox lunges forward, and the iron share bites into the rich clay. You plant your weight, lean into the handles, and guide the furrow's angle. The mud parts beneath the share with a soft rending sound, and the earth curls back on itself in a neat ridge. Each pass deepens the furrow, exposing fresh loam scented with decay and renewal. The physical rhythm, ox strain, plow pressure, bank shift, becomes meditative. The world reduces to heartbeats and yawning seams of soil. Mid-morning brings a break for tea and rice cakes. Under the shade of a solitary cherry tree, you sit on a smooth stone and unwrap a leaf-wrapped bundle. The rice cakes are a recent addition, gifts from the magistrate to encourage proper posture and prevent fatigue among his plowmen. But the tea itself is local. Fresh leaves roasted over pine embers and whipped into a frothy bowl. You sip and watch the terraces below, noting the water level in each. Your neighbor, Hiroshi, works 2 terraces over. His ox's plowshare struck a buried stone this morning and chipped. By lunch, you will lend him your whetstone to resharpen. Returning to the field, you confront the terrace's awkward knee, where the hillside shifts sharply and a stray root seeks to tug at the plowshare. With practiced eye, you angle the plow slightly upward, relieving tension on the wood. Kintaro feels the shift and adjusts his gait, preventing the plowshare from catching and fracturing. You offer Kintaro a handful of straw, checking the sap running from the exposed edge. No crimson stain of blood appears, only the amber of resin from the beam's twisted grain. You straighten, press the share deeper, and carve through the stubborn root with a whisper of metal on wood. As the sun climbs, you approach the terrace's end. Before turning the furrow, you plant a small wooden stake painted with red ochre. This marker denotes the boundary of your tenancy, land held by your family for a generation under the daimyo's tax decree. Crossing this boundary without permission would incur a penalty, a loss of 2 weeks rationed rice, or a forced levy of extra labor on castle repairs. Each marker is small, but it holds the weight of feudal power. To turn the plow, you guide Kintaro into a smooth half-circle, keeping tension on the plow's beam to prevent it from dropping and scarring the terrace's walkway. You step carefully beside the furrow, stepping over moist ridges as if walking on the backs of dragons. At the terrace's near bank, you lift the handles, unlock the yoke from Kintaro, and pivot the plowshare by hand, an arduous task requiring upper body strength honed by years of weeding. The share swings free. You reverse its angle and reattach the yoke. Kintaro snorts, understanding the signal, and begins the return path. By midday, you have plowed 3 terraces, and your hands bear the stain of clay and the tenderness of repeated pressure. You pause at the stream, feeding these patties to rinse both plowshare and palms. The water is clear and cold. You scoop a handful, drink deeply, and offer the rest to Kintaro in a wooden bowl. As he drinks, you catch your reflection in the rippling surface. Sun-scorched cheeks, a streak of soil across your forehead, and eyes bright with purpose. You know that today's work will feed 100 souls across the year, yet many details remain unresolved. The bureaucratic demand of the magistrate's quota looms. You must complete 6 terraces by nightfall, submit to inspection, and record both rice line counts and labor stamps in the magistrate's travel slip before dusk. The thought of slipping beyond the prescribed quota, of failing to finish, gnaws at your focus, even as the plowshare sinks again into waiting earth. Standing at the stream's edge, you reflect on the broader tapestry of your life, the village's rice harvest, the magistrate's tax demands, the daimyo's large boots pacing the castle battlements above. Each furrow you turn is an equation: labor plus land, taxes plus tithes, effort balanced by sustenance. Yet for all the symmetry imposed by feudal order, the land itself can shift invisibly. Drought, flood, pestilence, and render every calculation moot. You lift the plow from the water, wipe it on your robe, and reattach the yoke to Kintaro's shoulders. As he tilts his head to meet the yoke's beam, you murmur the invocation your grandfather taught you. May Inari's blessings rise in each grain, and our toil echo in each harvest of plenty. You guide the ox back to the terrace you paused, turn the plowshare's edge one more time, and prepare to continue, even as your arm muscles brace for another furrow. One question resonates in your mind. If each careful ridge, carved by human hands, can sustain a village for a season, how many unseen forces, rodent, rainstorm, rusted share, stand ready to unravel the structure we so meticulously create? By mid-afternoon, the sun counsels you to move faster, or risk missing the magistrate's inspection before dusk. The narrow path winding between terraces glints with leftover dew, and Kintaro's steady plod carries the plowshare through increasingly heavy clay. You pause at the fourth terrace's midpoint to inspect the furrows. Even spacing, consistent depth, and minimal soil clods, signs of a well-tuned share and a willing ox. Yet as you look uphill, you note the dark line of the fifth terrace, studded with large stones, half exposed by last season's tilling. Each stone uprooted and removed will cost you precious minutes. You signal Kintaro to stop and dismount, sharpening your hoe's blade with a small whetstone carried in your sash. The hoe, a shorter wooden shaft with an iron blade, helps you dislodge stones without cracking the plowshare. You swing the blade into the sun-baked soil, pry a fist-sized rock loose, and roll it into the fallow verge. 5 swings later, you stand and replace the stone with a soft prayer. May this earthen heart yield grain in peace. The hoe's handle slides through your palms. Its smooth wood carries the imprint of your ancestors. You pocket the tool and reattach your sash, sweat trickling down your temple. Ahead, the fifth terrace demands attention. A final test before the magistrate's party arrives. You remount, guiding Kintaro around the stony patch to the terrace's edge. With careful reins, you steer him onto the barren strip, then lift the yoke band with a soft click. Kintaro backs, easing the plowshare over the soil, allowing you to pivot in place. You lower the share and signal him forward, marking the terrace's first furrow. Your pace slows as you focus on each inch. The share's angle, the ox's flank pressure, the bank's resistance. Rhythm returns, labor in slow motion, each breath a measure of control. Mid-furrow, you hear the distant clatter of wooden sandals and the faint calling of Takahiro-san. You glance uphill. The magistrate's inspection party, Master Okabe and 2 banner-bearing samurai, descend the hillside at a measured pace. Their banners proclaim the daimyo's crest, a golden butterfly on black silk. At their side walks Sawa, the magistrate's clerk, ledger in hand, his inkstone and brushes ready. You guide Kintaro to stand beside the plow, then step down and bow deeply. Good afternoon, Magistrate Okabe. My furrow is nearly complete. Your robe's hem gathers clay. Your skin bears the dust of 3 terraces already turned. Master Okabe raises a hand, signaling you to continue. He strides to the plow's cutting edge, fingering the share with a gauntleted hand. The edge remains sharp, he notes. Show me the terrace's breadth, depth, and alignment As per the Lord's decree, you nod and take the wooden measuring rod strapped to your back, a slender staff marked in shaku, Japanese feet, and sun, inches. Holding one end at the bank's crest, you extend the rod horizontally to the opposite edge, 7 shaku plus 3 sun, acceptable within the mandated 8 shaku width. Next, you thrust the rod into the soil to gauge depth, 1 shaku of furrow, just as required for optimal irrigation flow. Finally, you stand at the terrace's beginning and sight along the furrow's length, comparing against a taut plumb line clamped to a bamboo pole. The furrow's straightness falls within a half-sun deviation, sufficient to satisfy the magistrate's precision standard. Master Okabe nods. Well done. This terrace will water evenly. He steps aside, and the samurai position themselves to inspect Kintaro's yoke band and the plow's mortise connections. Satisfied, they utter a soft phrase of approval and call for Sawa's ledger. The clerk steps forward, flips to a blank column on a travel slip, and writes, Takahiro, Terrace 5 inspected, width 7 shaku 3 sun, depth 1 shaku, alignment plus 0.5 sun, ox team in good condition, all standards met. You breathe a quiet sigh of relief, though the work continues. The 6th and final terrace must be turned, the plowshare cleaned, tools stowed, and Kintaro unsaddled. All before dusk scatters the magistrate's caravan. You bow to Okabe and his party, then remount for the terrace beyond. Neighbors, rituals, and the human element. As you move to the 6th terrace, you pass your neighbor Hiroshi, whose own yoke rests beside a wheelbarrow mounded with removed rocks. Hiroshi stands with his wife, Ayame, discussing the morning's harvest forecasts. He glances at your plow basket and calls, Takahiro-san, I owe you thanks for the whetstone. The share gleams again. He lifts his hand in brief salute before returning to his own work. Small interactions like these sustain village solidarity, though fealty demands labor for the daimyo, daily cooperation, loaning tools, sharing water, ensures families survive lean years. You dip your bucket into a nearby irrigation channel and pour water into Hiroshi's open palm. May your fields thrive, you say, and he replies with a deep bow. At this moment, you recall the spring planting ceremony held each year at the local Inari shrine, a ritual you must attend tonight. The village priests will consecrate the plows, call upon the fox spirits for abundant harvests, and thread shimenawa, sacred ropes, across the entrance to ward off pestilence. The ceremony demands that plowmen wear sakaki branches in their hair, honorific tokens of connection to the divine. You touch the small sakaki sprig tucked behind your ear and remember to bring fresh offerings of sake and rice cakes. Yet for now, mortal tasks beckon. The 6th terrace remains bare. You reposition Kintaro, guide the plowshare into wet earth, and press forward into the slope. The terrace's slope is gentler here, inviting longer swathes of straight furrow. Kintaro senses the ease and moves more briskly. You stroke his flank and murmur, Almost there, old friend. Each ridge laid becomes a testament to your partnership. The final terrace and the magistrate's departure. By late afternoon, the 6th furrow nears completion. You check its depth and width, identical to the others, and measure the distance from battle-scarred terrace to terrace. As the setting sun bathes the terraces in copper light, you lift the plowshare one last time and disengage Kintaro's yoke. The ox, licks its muzzle, nostrils flaring at the scent of harvest promise. You led him to graze on the stubble of last season's cut rice, while you stow the plow in the field's corner, covering it with a cloth to protect the iron from evening dew. The magistrate's party approaches on foot, Master Okabe's boots crunching gravel, Sawa carrying the official slip. Master Okabe stops beside the completed terraces and surveys them from a low vantage. Terraces 1 through 6 plowed and measured. Inspection complete. He turns to you. Takahiro, your diligence honors both your family's name and the daimyo's trust. Return to your village and prepare for the spring planting ceremony tonight. We ride to the castle for reports. You bow your head. I am indebted to your guidance, Magistrate Okabe. May tomorrow's grasses grow tall. The samurai unsheathe folded fans with the daimyo's crest, signaling the party's departure. You watch as they ascend the path, banners dancing in the twilight breeze, evening reflections, unresolved uncertainties. Kintaro's feeding done, you lead the ox back to your hut, careful not to soil the plowed terraces. Inside, you wipe the plowshare with cloth, apply a coat of tallow, and hang it on a wooden peg milled from your father's beam. The hoe, measurement rod, and pole find their places in the corner rack. You light the hearth's charcoal brazier and place a kettle of water atop it. Soon you will sip green tea and unwrap a rice cake, savoring the quiet after a day's labor. Yet even as you clean your tools, a shadow of doubt follows. The magistrate praised your furrows, but the question of farm family quotas lingers. If weather turns, if pests invade, will these terraces yield enough? If irrigation fails on the gentlest slope, how might you repair furrows unseen? And beyond nature's vagaries, who ensures that magistrates like Okabe remain just and not driven by politics or corruption, adjusting quotas to meet the daimyo's expanding coffers? You lift your gaze to the single paper lantern at the hearth's corner, its glow warm but fragile. In the hush before the spring planting ceremony, one thought echoes. If the order of plowed terraces can feed a village for a year, how many silent cracks of stone, of tool, of trust lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting to unravel the carefully drawn lines of obligation and sustenance? The next dawn greets you with pale mist drifting along the terraces, each furrow now cradling shallow water, ready for seedling rice. Your scalp still carries the faint scent of sakaki leaves from the night's spring planting ceremony, and the small braided rope of rice straw around your waist reminds you that ritual and toil are inseparable. Today, you must transplant the nursery trays of young rice shoots into the turned paddies, an equally precise task, and the culmination of your plowing labor. Preparing the seedlings, you begin by gathering the nursery trays, shallow wooden boxes lined with soft straw, each holding hundreds of rice sprouts, roughly 2 sun tall. The trays rest in the village nursery, adjacent to your hut, their bottoms damp from last evening's irrigation. You lift a tray and carry it on your shoulder, mindful of the toddlers who dart between huts. They stop to stare at your indigo-dyed robe and the row of plow marks behind you. You offer them bows, and they tumble away, giggling. At the nursery, you inspect each sprout. Uniform pale green blades standing at attention. Any bent or yellowing seedling weakens the paddy's future yield. You gently lift several at random, checking root, tangle, and stem firmness. Satisfied, You stack the trays on a small cart and wheel them to the first terrace. The sun rises behind Mount Kinka, turning the sky from pearl gray to soft rose, transplanting with precision. On the paddy's edge, you kneel in thigh-deep water, sandals cast aside to avoid soggy ruin. You set the tray on a bamboo stand, twist off a handful of seedlings at the roots, and transfer them into the muddy water. You push each little cluster into the soft clay at measured intervals, 6 sun between plants in each row, and 8 sun between rows. This spacing allows each stalk to spread its roots without crowding, ensuring air circulates and sunlight reaches every leaf. As you work, you recite softly and rhythmically a planting invocation. Sprouts of the spring, rise through the mud, drink of the sun, bear grains in flood. Your voice merges with the gentle lapping of the water, the quivering leaves, and the distant crow of a rooster. Each transplant demands balanced attention. Too shallow, and roots dry. Too deep, and stems rot. Too wide, and weeds encroach. Too crowded, and yields diminish. After 3 rows, your fingers ache, and you pause to adjust your knee pads and swallow rice wine sweetened barley tea. Halfway through, your apprentice, young Michiko, joins you carrying a fresh tray. She wobbles in the water, glancing at your steady motion. You teach her to hold seedlings by the leaves, not the fragile stems, and to press the mud firmly around the cluster's base. Her first try is jagged. She plants one cluster too close to another. You guide her hand, saying, "See, at 6 sun, the water flows evenly. Here, let me show you." Together, you replant that section, smoothing the mud until each plant stands erect. By mid-morning, the entire paddy is lined with precisely spaced rice babies, their reflections quivering like prayer flags. The water's surface ripples under a gentle breeze, and you take a moment to stand, water dripping from your sleeves. The terrace looks more like a mirror-polished plain than a field of soil, a testament to yesterday's plowing and today's planting. Magistrate's final visit and seal of approval news travels quickly. Magistrate Okabe and his clerk Sawa approach on foot again, this time flanked by 2 banner-bearing samurai. They pause at the paddy's mouth, observing your grid of seedlings. Master Okabe's voice carries across the terrace. "Takahiro-san, your transplantation is precise. I see no gaps or overcrowding. This paddy will yield well under careful nurture." You bow and step aside, offering kabuto head bows. Sawa, clipboard in hand, approaches to record the final inspection. Paddy 1, rows 8, sun apart, seedlings 6 sun, total plants, 1,200, approved. With the seal pressed, inked in vermilion pigment, you join the party at the terrace's top, where Okabe stands beside a small compost mound. He invites you to toss a handful of rice husks, your offering to Inari, into the compost to bless the field's fertility. You do so, scattering them like confetti in the wind. Ritual of the Watergate. Before departing, the magistrate requests participation in the Watergate ritual, designed to open the irrigation sluice properly. A small wooden gate at the terrace's end controls water flow into each level. You and Okabe lift the gate together, wood bound in copper hoops, and watch the water cascade into the next paddy below. A miniature waterfall that breathes life into the stepped fields. The careful adjustment ensures each terrace receives just enough to submerge the plants to their knees. A critical balance between oxygenation and nutrient delivery. As you turn the last notch, Okabe clasps your shoulder. "May this water flow with abundance, he says. Your labor renews our bonds. Peasant and samurai, tiller and magistrate. He mounts his palanquin. The samurai give 3 soft claps of their fanbusho, ritual clap, and the party ascends toward the castle. Evening's unfinished questions. Alone again, you reclaim the empty trays and wheel them back to the nursery. The cart's wheels leave wet tracks on the path. As dusk falls, you wash the trays and stack them to dry. The terraces, now watered and planted, recede into silhouettes under the lantern-lit sky. Returning to your hut, you light a single lantern, sit before a small earthenware bowl of miso soup and a portion of freshly steamed rice, and reflect on the day's arc, plowing terraces to precise measurements, navigating bureaucratic inspections, transplanting seedlings with gentle rigor, and performing communal rituals with the magistrate. Each moment required measuring: land, water, depth, spacing, and balancing duty to lord, community, and land. Yet before closing your eyes, one thought lingers in the quiet hearthlight. If a lifetime's discipline places each seedling just so, how delicate the line between abundance and famine, and how many hands, seen and unseen, must work in concert to keep that line unbroken. You leave your narrow garret before dawn, the lamplit streets of Whitechapel still shrouded in mist and soot. Your name is Samuel Sam Fletcher, and at 12 years old, you are apprenticed to Master Griggs, the chimney sweep of the parish. Your world is soot and smoke, soot and sky, each waking moment shaped by narrow flues, soot-smeared ladders, and the relentless hawking cough in your chest. Yet every morning you rise in service to the city's hearths, for London's coal-burning furnaces demand clean chimneys to banish the noxious fumes that can throttle life itself. Your small room, wedged beneath the eaves of a ramshackle tenement on Raven Street, holds little more than a straw pallet, a cracked water pitcher, and your meager bundle of clothing: a threadbare gray jacket, trousers much too large, and a kersey cloth cap. You untie the bundle, shake out the garments, and dress quickly, layering a stained linen shirt beneath your jacket, pulling up your trousers above your scrawny waist, and fitting the cap's brim low over eyes still heavy with sleep. You pause a moment, tracing a finger along the silver locket hanging from your neck, your mother's only gift before she died of consumption 3 winters past. Inside the locket rests a tiny silhouette of her worn face, a reminder of why you endure this filthy trade. For your younger sister, Mary, whom you provide for as best your wages allow. Leaning into the chill, you slip downstairs, the floorboards creaking beneath your bare feet, and step into the dark street. A damp odor clings to the air: wet cobblestones, far-off Thames brine, and the acrid tang of coal smoke pooled like low-lying fog. You pause at the lamppost, where the lampman's flickering flame casts shadows against brick walls. Beneath that glow stands your companion, 11-year-old Tom Perkins, fellow apprentice and friend, his face already smeared in soot, as if he'd slept beneath a chimney. "Morning, Sam," he whispers, pressing a gloved hand to his nose to stifle a cough. "Master's up early today. He's got orders at the manor on Fleet Street." You nod, knowing the gig. Wealthy households pay top pence to have their chimneys swept before fire season. The manor's grand chimneys must gleam, a point of pride for their lord, and a hazard if left clogged. Together you head toward Master Griggs's yard, a small brick courtyard off Pie Street, filled with ladders, sweeping brushes, and worn sacks of soot. Master Griggs, a burly man scarred by decades of coal dust, stands by the open stable. Dark whiskers fringe his mouth, and his square shoulders slope beneath a leather apron that bears deep smears of tar and ash. "Hurry up, you two," he barks, tipping a tin of pipe tobacco into his palm. The pungent aroma swirls as he stuffs it into his pipe and strikes flint on steel, sparks leaping before the pipe's bowl. He lights it with a splay of embers, inhales deeply, and blows a smoke ring that hovers momentarily before dispersing. You and Tom approach, grinning despite the cold. Master Griggs nods approval. Today, 3 chimneys at Lord Cartwright's townhouse on Fleet Street, then back here for the tenement sweep on Gunthorpe Lane. Off you go. He gestures to a row of tall, slender ladders leaning against the yard wall. Each ladder, constructed of ash wood and bound with leather strips, extends 20 feet, enough to reach the second-story chimneys of most London houses. Master Griggs hands you the shorter ladder, and Tom the longer one. "Sam, you take the lower flues. Tom, the upper. Keep your weight balanced. One misstep and you'll end up in the kitchen hearth." He grabs a pair of tongs and a box of smokers, sacks of birchwood blocks that, when lit, puff smoke down the chimney to dislodge loose soot. "I'll set the smoker at the top. You two follow behind with the brushes." You hoist your ladder and shoulder the brush, a bundle of stiff bristles bound to a long ash pole, and trek toward Fleet Street, trading the empty yard's gloom for the narrow lane's soft lamplight. Cobblestones glisten with rain, shutters rattle in the wind, distant church bells toll the hour. Your heart beats with anticipation. Jobs for the gentry, pay shillings, enough for a pot of stew and coal for Mary this week. At Lord Cartwright's townhouse, you marvel at its polished door knocker. 2 lions' heads, ringed before crimson paint. A footman opens the door, his boots clicking on marble tiles. "Master Griggs?" he asks. Griggs nods, and the footman leads the way to a grand back courtyard where 4 chimneys rise above a tiled roof. Master Griggs kneels by the first flue's firebox and sets the smoker's blocks alight. Inspirited flames puff out embers onto a metal tray as the smoker's pipe directs smoke upward. You and Tom mount your ladders. Tom to the taller chimney, you to the shorter one, pausing for a moment to secure each ladder's base between battered boots. You test the ladder's wobble with a firm grip and a cautious step. Above you, Griggs lights the smoker's fuse and passes you a length of rope. You tie it to a hook on the chimney's crown, securing the smoker's lantern in place. Then, with a nod from Griggs, you each begin your climb. Each rung creaks. Each step sends the ladder tipping slightly inward. You press your body against the cold brick as you ascend. Your cap is pulled tight, and your breath puffs in white clouds. At the chimney top, you swing the brush head inside the flue's opening, the bristles scraping soot from the bricks. Girths of black fall into your sooty bag. Master Griggs and Tom hold the bag beneath. The brush's handle vibrates with each stroke. Soot flakes shower onto your jacket, your hair dripping down into the bag below. Your arms ache, but you press on, mindful that a half-done chimney invites chimney fires, raging infernos that hollow wooden beams and devour entire houses. Tom's muffled cough echoes from the taller chimney as he sweeps more deeply. Somewhere below, Griggs raps the flue with a long pole, and clumps of soot tumble down. Soon the flue's interior gleams, pale brick, where once blackness reigned. You crawl back down, chest heaving, and help Tom lower his bag. Griggs examines both flues, nods approval, and scratches his beard. Well done, lads. On to number 2. You repeat the process 2 more times, lighting smokers, climbing ladders, sweeping soot, and bagging debris. By mid-morning, 4 flues gleam clean. A maid's voice calls you down, offering a silver penny and a mug of ale, foaming with warmth. Master Griggs sends you for the ale. You descend the ladder, hand off the tongs, and step into the Lord's butler's hands. The ale is bitter, your hands shake, and you swallow deeply, feeling heat in your bones as the cold mist dances beyond the open courtyard gate. Then, with your mug emptied and penny stashed in your pocket, you and Tom trudge back to Griggs's yard, staggering under shaking ladders. Griggs greets you with a pipe-smoked laugh. Next, Gunthorpe Lane, tenements with narrow stacks. You'll need the skinny brush for those. He hands you each a slender brush, half the width of the first, its bristles fine and wiry. Be careful. Stacks so narrow you'll scrape your knuckles if you're not precise. Back on the street, Master Griggs leads the way to a row of soot-streaked tenements. Families press faces to windows, watching the busy yard. Children prop their elbows on sill ledges, fascinated by ladders and soot bags. Griggs sets the first smoker at the base of the narrowest stack. You and Tom hoist the short ladder, tie the smoker's rope, and begin the ascent. The stack is so tight, you brush elbows against brick. Dust pours down the back of your neck. You work methodically, twisting the pole to angle the brush's bristles. Tom's coughing grows urgent, and you see tears in his eyes as the soot blankets him like funeral shroud. By early afternoon, 8 narrow stacks have yielded their soot. Griggs pockets the last silver penny, instructs you to gather the brushes, and then dismisses you. You and Tom limp back through the yard, throw down ladders, and slump against the wall, dripping soot and dust. Griggs pours you each a bowl of cheap gruel and a thick slice of bread. You eat ravenously, your stomach growling, catching crumb bits before they land in your lap. Between mouthfuls, you reflect on the day's labors, sweeping more than a dozen chimneys without error, avoiding slips that could crush bones, battling coughs that chase breath from your lungs. Soot coats every surface of your body, yet every sweep prevented a fire, warmed a hearth, and earned a coin for Mary's bread. In the firelight, you catch your reflection in the oil-spotted bowl, the dark circles under your eyes, the smudge of coal beneath your fingernails, and the resolute set of your jaw. As dusk falls and the lamps ignite in the yard, Master Griggs dismisses the 2 of you. He hands you 3 coppers each, wages to spend on a loaf and a candle for tonight's meager supper. You and Tom exchange glances and shoulder your brushes one last time. Tomorrow will bring new chimneys, some narrow as your finger, some towering above rooftops in the city. Each demands its own lesson in angles, patience, and watchful care. Yet in the hush of the yard, you ask a question that lingers beneath the soot's stain. If the relentless sweep of brush and pole can banish fire's hidden threat from a single hearth, what unseen sparks of poverty, disease, or neglect smolder in the darkest corners of London's alleys, waiting for a breath to ignite them? By the time the city's gas-lit glow begins to soften into dawn, you find yourself back at Master Griggs's yard, elbows aching from yesterday's sweeps, and lungs rasping from soot still lodged deep in your throat. Today's task lies in two parts. First, the towering stacks of the new schoolhouse on Marrowbone Lane, a chance to earn higher pay, and second, the ornate Gothic flue of the Grand Thompson residence on Gower Street, where a single missed ember could ignite scandal. Master Griggs has laid out your brushes, a heavy round head for the schoolhouse, and a delicate oval brush with pliant bristles for the Thompson hearth. Schoolhouse stacks at Marrowbone Lane. You and Tom shoulder your long ladders, twice the length of yesterday's tallest, toward Marrowbone Lane, where children scurry to morning classes. As you pass the narrow alleyways, you note the soot-blackened walls, reminders that countless chimneys breathe life into London's winter fires. At the schoolhouse, a heavy iron gate swings open at your approach. The headmaster, austere in a black frock coat, greets Master Griggs with a nod. The scholars must not be disturbed, he intones, but the flues are due for your expert care. Master Griggs signals you and Tom to position the ladders against the schoolhouse's two southern stacks, which soar 3 stories above the pitched slate roof. You test the ladder's footing on damp cobbles, then begin your climb. First to the lower stack, each rung brings you closer to swirling mists of smoke that coil around the chimney's crown. You pause at the crown's base, removing your cap to warm your head against the chill. Below, a group of schoolboys lean out of open windows to watch, their faces pale with awe. You attach an empty soot bag to the lower lip of the flue and secure your smoker's rope. Master Griggs lights the smoker in the courtyard below, and soon acrid fumes drift upward in thick whirls that burn your eyes. You raise your round brush, a stiff-bristled head on a 10-foot pole, and guide it inside the flue. The bristles catch on stringers of hardened creosote, each stroke chipping flakes loose that tumble into the bag below. You lean deeper into the flue, careful not to lose your balance. The brickwork is sooted, nearly black. Only where your brush has passed does the faint orange of aged brick show through. Your shoulders burn as you apply steady pressure to the brush's handle, rotating it with wrist-twisting motions until the flue's interior gleams clean. Below, the bag bulges with a fine carpet of soot. You withdraw the brush, wipe it on a spare rag, and sling the bag over your shoulder. Then, you ascend to the second, taller stack, nearly at roofline, where the flue narrows and the wind whips fiercely around your collar. You clamp one hand to the brick lip and inch the ladder's top, rung deeper against the shaft, your other hand gripping the chimney's edge. A gust nearly throws you off balance. You press close, aching muscles coiled like springs. Then you set the round brush's head against the flue and repeat the scrubbing stroke. By mid-morning, both stacks stand free of creosote, and Master Griggs examines them with a critical eye. No loose bits, he declares. You've earned your extra pence. Now, on to Thompson's. He doles you each a copper piece, enough for bread and cheese later, then leads the way to the West End, the Thompson residence, a delicate sweep. Traversing narrow passageways and grand crescents, you find the Thompson townhouse at the end of a side street. Its facade of ivory-painted brick shines in the morning sun, and ornate iron railings guard its basement windows. A footman in livery ushers you through a side door into the servants' hallway, whose marble tiles are already polished for the day's incoming guests. You set down your heavy ladder and retrieve the oval brush, a narrow paddle of fine bristles bound to a 15-foot extension pole. Master Griggs motions for silence. Thompson pays well, but one slip and we're out on the street. Remember, delicate sweep, minimal vibration, no cracking of tiles. His hand hovers near your elbow to steady the brush as you ascend. The first flue lies behind a carved mahogany panel in the drawing room ceiling. You mount 6 rungs to reach the flue's mouth, then peer inside. The walls are lined with the Thompson family crest, delicately painted festoons that creosote has nearly hidden. You cannot scrape away too much soot, lest you damage the painted render. Instead, you choose a light touch. You insert the oval brush gently and rotate it in small circles, brushing soot into the flue's center to fall onto a clean rag held below by Tom. Each pass loosens only the lightest film of soot, preserving the painted ornament. Sweat trickles down your spine, your arms trembling as you maintain the brush's angle and pressure. You take a breath, center your gravity against the panel's edge, and sweep again. When the painted crest's gold leaf begins to glimmer, you know the job is done. Carefully, you remove the brush and place it aside, then tap the flue's rim thrice, a signal for Tom to lower the rag without smudging the plaster. Master Griggs nods approval and escorts you to the second flue in the family's private library. Here, the flue is narrower and high-arched. You ascend again, insert the brush's bristles, and sway to the flue's curvature, sweeping in measured arcs. Your cap falls into the flue's opening. Heart pounding, you stretch to retrieve it. The bristles catch on edges, bending sharply, yet you pry them free without breaking. At last, you remove your cap, pat it smooth, and secure it on your head, earning respect and confronting danger. With the second flue complete, Master Griggs descends to inspect your work. He lowers the housekeeper's lamp into the flue's mouth so you can see the walls bare brick. Well handled, he says. You've got the touch. He reaches into his pocket and hands you a silver shilling, a rare and generous coin. Go buy Mary a new pair of shoes, he adds, glancing at you with unexpected warmth. Your chest tightens. A shilling could feed you and your sister for 2 days. You bow, voice catching. Thank you, master. A sudden crash echoes through the hallway below. You freeze, brush in hand. Tom's eyes widen. The schoolhouse chimney. There's a fire. Flames roar faintly against the yard wall. Master Griggs curses under his breath and grips your shoulder. You two stay here. I'll handle this. But you step forward, mind unsteady. Master, we can help. Chimney fires spread fast. Someone must climb. He hesitates, then nods sharply. Tom, fetch the round brush. Sam, grab the iron poker and coal shovel. Move. You sprint across the tiled hall, unroll your brush extension, and charge toward the yard. A plume of black smoke coils up Marrowbone Lane's facade, and villagers spill into the street. Alarmed cries ascending at the foot of the schoolhouse. You see flames licking the base of the lower stack, the very one you swept hours ago. Your heart constricts. Soot buildup, dry creosote, and maybe a floating ember have fused into a roaring inferno. Battling the chimney fire master, Griggs signals Tom to position the long ladder. As the ladder slams against stone, you brace it with all your weight, then scramble up with the poker in hand. Each rung vibrates with heat. The leather binding beside your boot smolders. At the chimney's crown, you peer into a red-hot conflagration. You thrust the poker into the flue's charred interior, pushing burning embers free, while Tom below holds an empty watering can, ready to douse the debris. You jab the poker against the flue's scorching walls, loosening packed creosote. Flames belch out, but you hold fast. Below, Tom pours a slow stream of water into the soot bag, creating a mixture of hot ash and steaming water that drips harmlessly. Master Griggs uses a hose to rain water on the roof joists, preventing flashover. For several tense minutes, you battle the fire, poking, clearing, and dousing loose embers, until the flue's roaring subsides into glowing embers. Finally, the fire shrinks to coals, and you withdraw the poker, breathless and blackened. Below, villagers murmur in relief as Master Griggs signals the all clear. You descend, dizzy with adrenaline. Griggs hands you a flask of strong rum. You gulp it, feeling heat return to your limbs. You saved the day, he says, voice hoarse but proud. He wraps a heavy arm around your shoulder and nods to the schoolhouse door. Let's get that swept again, this time to keep the danger from ever returning. Question of duty and mortality. As you and Tom climb the ladder once more to the still smoldering flue, you wonder how many fires rage unseen in London's hidden chimneys and alleyways. Each sweep you perform wards off disaster, yet a single ember can ignite catastrophe. With soot still in your lungs and rum warming your veins, you lift the brush for another pass, aware that every stroke balances life and death in this city of smoke. If a chimney sweep's skill can avert conflagration and save lives, how many invisible threats lie in wait behind the city's chimneys, silent, unseen, and deadly, testing the courage of those who dare to chase them down. The roar of the schoolhouse chimney fire still echoes in your ears as you and Tom descend the ladder for the final time, soot streaking your faces like battle paint. Master Griggs stands at the base, wrapped in a thick coat of ash, his eyes bright with relief. That was well done, he rumbles, his voice gravelly from smoke. Now we finish the job. Properly this time. Final sweep and safety checks. You and Tom shoulder the heavy round brush once more and reascend to the lower stack. The flue's inner walls, now cooled to glowing embers, bear the scars of yesterday's clean sweep, but require a final pass to clear residual creosote that served as kindling. Carefully, and with more respect for the heat, you insert the brush, rotating it with deliberate slowness so as not to crack the brickwork. Each turn dislodges black scales, which fall into the soot bag below with a metallic rattle. After 3 slow passes, you withdraw the brush and inspect the walls. The brick is a deep russet, revealing neat mortar joints that shine under the footman's lantern held below. You tap the flue's inner lip with your iron poker. A firm, hollow ring confirms no soft spots remain. Tom, breathing hard, secures the soot bag's mouth and lowers it to the yard below. Master Griggs examines the flue with a hand lens, nods, and waves you back up for the upper stack. The second stack, narrower and lined now with water-streaked bricks, demands the delicate touch of your oval brush. You lean over the crown, peering into the gloom, then guide the brush in small, precise arcs, just enough to sweep away any lingering soot without scratching the aged mortar. When you step back, the flue's interior gleams so brightly that the lantern's beam seems magnified in the depths. With the chimneys now fully cleared and safe, Master Griggs signals the end of your work. Below, a small group of school children watches from the courtyard gate. Their eyes wide as you descend the ladder, they break into polite applause, an unexpected welcome that leaves you flushed with pride under a layer of soot, reckoning with the day's toll. Back in the yard, Master Griggs fills 2 tin cups with strong black tea sweetened with treacle. You and Tom gulp the hot liquid, feeling warmth seep into your chilled limbs. He hands you each a small square of ginger candy, an old remedy to soothe the lungs, and watches you chew thoughtfully. You've earned rest, he says, clapping his meaty hand on your shoulder. But remember, every sweep, every chimney carries its own danger. Don't think today's battle was the last. You nod, coughing as the soot candy scratches your throat. In the yard's corner, you remove your cap and shake out the worst of the soot, then hang both cap and brush on the rack, knowing you'll scrub them clean later, if you can spare the time. Sitting on a battered wooden crate, you cradle your tin cup, gazing at the dusky sky. The smoke from London's thousands of chimneys drifts in a gray haze above the rooftops, each plume a reminder of the hidden fires within. Your chest tightens as you consider the day's narrow escape. A chimney fire, roaring nearly out of control, lighting sparks under wooden rafters and threatening innocent lives. And yet, for every conflagration you vanquish, dozens more smolder unseen. The magistrate's clamps on safety grow tighter, the fees for the wealthy higher. But the poorest houses, flimsy hovels in Whitechapel, go unswept, breeding soot and disease. The price of cleanliness. Master Griggs stubs out his pipe against the ladder's rung, the embers hissing in protest. Take this, he says, pressing a folded shilling into your palm. For Mary, and for yourself. Buy a bruise salve or a loaf. You cradle the coin, amazed at its heft. He continues, voice softer now. We sweep chimneys, so families can breathe safe air. But we pay a price. Lungs full of soot, bodies bent, lives cut short. I've seen too many lads my age gone to dust from inhaling creosote day after day. His eyes meet yours, and you sense the weight of years spent in flues narrower than your shoulders. Promise me you'll look after yourself, and look out for Tom, too. You swallow hard. I will, master. I promise. The day's end, a moment of quiet reflection. As dusk deepens, you trudge home along Raven Street, the shilling warm against your chest. Street lamps flicker to life, illuminating rows of soot-blackened brick. You pass a blind widow, kneeling outside her doorway, clutching a tin pot to collect alms. You drop a copper into her pot, and she murmurs a blessing that warms you more than tea ever could. Reaching your garret, you light a single tallow candle, its flame quivering in the drafty room. You sit before your mother's locket, open it, and let the small silhouette catch the candlelight. Outside, a distant church bell tolls the hour. Inside, you feel the stillness settle, soot settling in the corners like dust on memories. In the hush, you clutch your little notebook, worn pages of chimney dimensions, brush angles, and creosote consistency. Jotting a final note by candlelight, you record day's work, 6 schoolhouse stacks, 2 residential flues, chimney fire at schoolhouse, extinguished, thorough final sweeps completed, lungs black, back sore. Reward, 1 shilling supped master's praise. You close the notebook and gaze at the small flame, its soft radiance a fragile defense against London's darkness. Every chimney you sweep becomes a beacon of safety, yet countless others smolder, unattended. You know that tomorrow's work will find you in the same soot-filled grind, climbing rickety ladders and battling silent fires. And so, in the quiet of your garret, you pose the question that will guide you through each dawn. If a chimney sweep's hand can restore a hearth's safety, whose hand will venture next into the city's darkened flues, where embers smolder unseen and every breath could be a last? You step off the rattling tram into the chill of Manchester's dusk, the city's factory chimneys already stitching ribbons of smoke into the violet sky. Your name is William Will Harper, and you have just completed your dinner of cold meat and stale bread at the lodging house on Ducey Street. Tonight, you begin your first shift as a night watchman for the railway carriage works on Whitworth Road, a sprawling complex of brick sheds, iron presses, and glass-paned offices. Your task is simple. Patrol the yard from 7 p.m. until 2 a.m., deter thieves, prevent fires, and note any industrial mischief before the morning's opening. At precisely 7, you punch in on the time clock in the foreman's office, receiving your watchman's lantern, a heavy iron fixture with a mica window that glows steadily when your oil lamp is lit. You fasten the lantern at your belt and arm yourself with a stout whistle. A shrill tone can rouse the entire night crew, and a length of sap-stained rope for securing gates. The foreman, a grizzled ex-engineer named Mr. Collingwood, points you toward the workshop gates. "Be vigilant," he says. "Last week, someone tried to pry open the tool store. If you see a shadow, challenge it. If you hear a hiss of steam, check the boiler house. And don't fall asleep in the office. Johnson was sacked for snoring through the lamp-room fire." You nod, set your cap squarely, and step into the yard. Immediately, you sense the machinery's heartbeat, the distant clank of a press bottle filling with molten brass, the throb of a stationary engine idling, the hiss of steam escaping a valve. You pause at the main gate, pat it with your gloved hand, and check that its heavy iron bar lies firmly in place. A single misaligned bolt could allow a band of scrap metal thieves to make off with an entire carriage frame. Your first beat takes you along the west fence, where open-air railcar stacks sit lined like rusting dinosaurs. You shine your lantern across the jagged edges of girders and the pale gleam of unpainted wheels. In the dim pools of light, you note footprints, fresh prints in the mud, leading toward the engine bolt store. You follow them quietly, hand on your whistle, and find the back door's padlock scratched. The lock's hasp still holds, but its shackle shows deep gouges. You sketch the scene in your pocket notebook. 8:05 p.m. West Yard Gate, lock tampered. Notify foreman at 2 a.m. if no further activity. You tap the lock with your lamp's handle. No movement. And move on. Every pulse quickened by the near breeze of someone who might yet return. Crossing to the boiler house at 8:30, you check the furnace yard for stray sparks that could ignite coal dust. The roof's great ventilators hiss as they draw air through the fire brick stacks. You shine your light through the shutter slats and confirm the burner's pilot flame glows steadily, a lifeline for the workshops that will roar to life in hours. Satisfied, you stamp your boot on the grated catwalk, listening for hollow spots that might betray a broken plate. None emerge, but you mark the inspection. 8:30 p.m. Boiler house fan shutters inspected. Pilot flame steady. Your next patrol takes you to the carriage assembly sheds. Inside, Vacant jig frames stand waiting for iron panels. Benches bear scattered oil cans and rivet buckets. You enter the dim building. The lanterns glow flickering against cast iron beams. The air smells of tar, machine oil, and stale sweat. Sudden clatter from a distant corner sends your heart leaping. You raise the whistle to your lips, just in case, then advance slowly. A rat scurries past, dragging a scrap of canvas. You exhale with relief and note 9:07 p.m. Carriage shed. Rodent activity. Recommend pest mitigation. At 9:30, you emerge into the yard's center to patrol the paint shop's exterior. A fresh painted carriage in deep maroon stands under a single gas lamp. You approach, finger tracing the neat line between panels. A faint scrawl in chalk, diced X marks, flickers on the wood. You crouch, rub it with your thumb. It smudges easily. Graffiti or an apprentice's prank? You record its presence, the chalk's crude marks, promising more than mere childish defiance. 9:30 p.m. Paint shop carriage. Rear 17. Suspicious chalk marks on panel joints. You move on, deciding to alert Mr. Collingwood at first light. Tension coils in your shoulders. Manchester nights are long, and fewer souls roam after 10 p.m. You press forward toward the tool store, locked now, but once vulnerable, and the empty offices upstairs, where the accountant's safe sits behind a wrought iron grille. Your footsteps echo on wooden stairs as you climb to the second floor, checking each locked door with a push. Safe and silent, the offices await dawn's clerks. At 11 p.m., you reach the end of your circuit. You sit on a crate by the oil store, unscrew your lantern to refuel from the reluctant dribble of oil. The jar's last drops fall too slowly. You flick your cap light on and refill the lamp properly, making a mental note to request new oil supply. 11 p.m., lantern oil low. Refill supply needed. So begins the quiet hour, between midnight and 2 a.m., when mischief or disaster strikes unseen. You scan the yard. The presses rest silent. The rails lie cold, and the distant glow of factory windows fades to embers. Your whistle lies on your lap, a steel promise that you will rouse the yard should flames flare or thieves prowl. As the clock's shadow lengthens toward 2 a.m., you settle into the wooden bench by the time clock. Keeping your eyes open against sleep's pull, you trace the yard's every silhouette. Your hands cramp from noting each detail. Yet you persevere, haunted by the thought that while you guard the works, Manchester's industrial heart beats on, and one spark can ignite catastrophe amidst the coal and iron. Before the dawn watch ends, you reflect on a single thought. In a city fueled by black fire and iron strength, whose vigilance will catch the silent threat before it erupts. A careless spark, a pride lock, a half-noticed shadow, and who bears the quiet burden of standing watch while the world sleeps. The deep hours between midnight and 2 a.m. press heavily upon you, Will. As you rise from the wooden bench in the yard center, your lantern's glow flickers against the corrugated iron roofs and the silent rows of carriages waiting to roll in with the dawn. You feel the weight of your responsibility settle in your shoulders. Every shadow could conceal a prowler. Every spark could ignite a conflagration in these coal-soot-laden workshops. You tuck your whistle into your coat pocket and tighten your grip on the sap-stained rope at your belt. Tonight, no detail may slip through your watchful eyes. The boiler yard's hidden hazard. At 12:15 a.m. you begin the second circuit, retracing your steps toward the boiler yard. The night air carries a faint hiss from a distant vent, perhaps a leak in the steam lines. You pause beneath the large vent hood and lift the lantern higher, inspecting the pipe flange's bolts. One bolt's square head bears fresh wrench marks. The rubber gasket around the joint shows a thin weep of steam. A small leak, yes, but in these yards, even a half-inch hiss can frost the pipe's surface, weakening metal over time. You jolt your notebook's page. 12:15 a.m. Boiler yard pipe leak. Flange, MER B12. Steam weep 0.5 osmin. Recommend immediate maintenance. Shoving your notebook into your coat pocket, you lift the rope and pat the flange lightly to see if the leak grows. It does not, but you know that as morning's first light arrives, the yard engineers must be alerted. A failing steam line could cause a catastrophic burst, scalding a worker or halting engine power for every workbench. The office. Windows. A midnight visitor. Continuing along the fence, you pass the row of glass-fronted offices where clerks and accountants maintain day records, typically dark at this hour. One window still holds a faint glow. The accountant's lamp burns low. You pause and raise your lantern for a better view. Inside, you see the silhouette of someone hunched over the safe's ledger cage, a barred enclosure protecting the day's payroll and petty cash. Your heart hammers. You lift the rope from your belt and wrap it around the lamppost rail. The lantern dangles, freeing both hands. You approach the window quietly, whistle poised. Through the glass, you glimpse a figure in a bowler hat, Officer Giles from the district constabulary, known for his late-night rounds. He scribbles entries onto the ledger's front page, then crosses out a line, replacing 12 with 10 a subtraction of £1.05. He pauses, glances at the open safe beneath the cage, and glides his hand over the lock's tumblers as if testing their fit. You bite your lip. Is this official work, an adjustment ordered by Foreman Collingwood, or something darker? You clear your throat, catching Giles's attention. He spins, candle sputtering in panic. You step back and raise your whistle to your lips, the harsh steel note echoing off the brick walls. Giles's hand darts to his coat pocket. He retreats swiftly into the hallway, and you hear a door click shut. You knock on the office door and call, "Mr. Giles." "All's well, sir. Just checking for security." No answer. You record the incident. 12:42 a.m. Accountant's office. Suspected payroll alteration by Officer Giles. Ledger discrepancies observed. Subject fled upon challenge. Your pulse races as you consider the implications. If a constable clandestinely removes funds, how many trusts are undermined behind these gates? And if the very guardians of law slip their hands into the till, what hope remains for order in this smoky expanse? The yard's eastern perimeter. Stray embers. At 1 a.m., you reach the eastern perimeter, where scrap metal piles await sorting at dawn. Here, coal dust settles thick. Sparks from yesterday's brazing might smolder unseen. You sweep the lantern beam across the ground and spot a faint orange glow beneath a heap of discarded iron shavings. Cautiously, you step closer and find a small ember, no larger than a cherry pit, burning within a nest of cinders. You grab the sap rope and fashion a lasso around the nearest shovel handle. Swiftly, you rake the shavings aside and dampen the embers with water drawn from the yard's corner barrel. Steam hisses as the ember cools to ash. You crouch, patting the ground to ensure no heat remains. Then jot another note. 1 Ras AM, Eastern Yard scrap heap. Isolated ember detected and extinguished. Recommend sweeping and wet down of shavings after shift. A small triumph. One ember's doom might have ignited the entire scrap pile, triggering a fire that could consume wooden crates of carriage wheels and half-finished frames. The lone figure on Whitworth Road. At 1:30 a.m., you make a final swing past the main gate and find a lone figure lurking beneath the street lamp on Whitworth Road. You raise your lantern's beam. It lands on a man in a tattered overcoat, his face concealed by the cap's brim. He lifts a bundle of tool handles from beneath a bench, straight edge, file handles, hammer shafts, and places them within a cloth sack. You blow your whistle twice, high and sharp. The man spins, clutching the sack, and bolts down the street, boots echoing against stone. You pursue, shouting, "Stop! Thief!" But the dark alleyways swallow his retreat. Catching your breath, you return to the tool store gate. The padlock's shackle bears fresh pries. The wood's grain bears splintered gouges. Someone has targeted the tool inventory again. No longer mere curiosity, but line cutting for a cold steel heist. You set the rope around the gate's crossbeam, loop the whistle cord around your wrist, and test the lock's integrity. It holds, yet you know that unless the store's lock is replaced and reinforced, these thieves will return. You note tersely, 1:30 a.m., tool store padlock further pried. Attempted theft, noted fleeing suspect. Recommend lock upgrade and security post. The final checkpoint, the yard gate. By 1:50 a.m., your oil lamp burns low. You refill it from your flask, mindful of the dwindling oil supply. Your lantern's beam trembles as you swing it over the main gate for the third time. The heavy iron bar still lies in its slot, but you spot a chink in the wood threshold, a gap someone may exploit to pry the bar aside. You kneel and press the sap rope into the gap as a temporary wedge. It holds, but only barely. 1:50 a.m. Main gate threshold gap. Temporary wedge placed. Recommend carpentry repair before morning. You step back, straightening your shoulders. Outside, the first hint of dawn's gray light seeps through the smoky air, dimming the lamp's glow. You finish your patrol by punching the time clock. 2:00 a.m. The watch is done. A question in the quiet aftermath. Back in the foreman's office, Mr. Collingwood reviews your ledger of incidents. Lock tamperings, steam leaks, ember extinguishes, payroll suspicions, and tool theft attempts. He rubs his stubbled chin, glances at you, and says, "Excellent work, Harper. I'll see these matters addressed today." You nod, weary but resolute, as he taps each note into the factory's morning report. You hang your lantern, stow the rope, and pocket the whistle. Outside, the city yawns awake. Distant factory whistles pierce the dawn. Trams rumble along cobblestones, and bakers light their ovens. Walking home, you ponder the night's revelations. A constable succumbing to temptation. Embers threatening conflagration. Thieves probing every weakness. Steam leaks undermining power. In a city of iron and smoke, vigilance is the only shield against chaos. Yet vigilance requires more than a single watchman's care. It demands a network of guardians, each attentive to shadows and sparks. Before you reach your lodging house, you pause at the factory gates and gaze across the sleeping yard. In the hush of dawn, you ask yourself if a lone watchman's efforts can thwart theft, fires, and corruption for one night, what unseen dangers will surface when no one stands watch? And who among the countless, shadowed corners of the industrial city will sound the alarm then? The factory yard, once a dark labyrinth of steel and shadow, now stirs with the first glimmers of dawn. You emerge from the foreman's office into gray light, your lantern's glow swallowed by pale morning haze. Coal-black smoke still drifts from the chimneys, but your patrol has ensured no flare-ups will mar the day's work. Yet the unsettling events of the night, an attempted payroll alteration, pride locks, steam leaks, and ember fires, linger in your mind like soot under fingernails. Morning aftermath, coordinating repairs and investigations. By 6 a.m., you reconvene with Mr. Collingwood and key foreman in the yard. You stand before your notes, pinned on a wooden board. Boiler yard flange, B12 leak, 00.5 osmin. Accountant's ledger discrepancy by Officer Giles isolated ember in scrap heap. Tool store padlock tampering and attempted theft main gate threshold gap. Mr. Collingwood thumbs through your entries, nodding crisply. Good work, Harper. Let's dispatch repair crews now. He assigns one team to the boiler house, welding a new flange and retorquing bolts. Another to replace the tool store lock with a hardened steel shackle. And a third to rebuild the main gate threshold with a new oak sill. Meanwhile, he directs his clerk to cross-reference the payroll records and to liaise with the district constabulary regarding Officer Giles's suspicious entries. You watch as men disperse, carrying tools and materials, their shadows long in the yard's fresh light. The churning wheels of industry will soon resume at full tilt, steam engines roaring back to life, presses stamping steel, carriages rolling onto rails. For your part, you feel a surge of pride. Your night's vigilance has prevented further loss, safeguarded the day's labor, and perhaps saved a colleague from scalding injury or dismissal for missing tools. Confronting authority. The constable's reckoning. At 8 a.m., you escort Mr. Collingwood to the accountant's office, where Officer Giles stands stiffly before the open safe, flanked by the magistrate's representative and Collingwood's clerk. Giles, adjusting his cap, meets your eye as you enter. The magistrate's rep slaps your patrol report onto the desk. Allegation: unauthorized alteration of payroll ledger entries, net diversion of 155 S. Giles pales, fingers grazing the safe's cold iron. He stammers that it was a clerical correction, then admits he panicked upon discovering fraudulent claims by the clerk, claims you have not observed. Under questioning, Giles concedes altering entries without permission, coaxed by the clerk's plea to cover embezzlement. The clerk is summoned. Under inspection, his own handwriting matches the smudged chalk patterns you noted. Evidence of conspiracy emerges. Giles's alteration concealed the clerk's theft of petty cash, which you unwittingly uncovered. The magistrate's rep thanks you with a curt nod. Your vigilance upheld justice in more ways than one, watchman. Giles is dismissed pending disciplinary review, and the clerk is detained for prosecution. You exhale a long breath, feeling the weight of that midnight confrontation lift. The boiler yard's renewal. Walking to the boiler house, you find the repair crew at work. Sparks flying as a welder fuses a new bronze flange. Steam hisses through a freshly packed joint, and a lead gasket cures under heated clamps. You note the stamped date and your name engraved beneath. Repaired by order of W. Harper, night watchman, June 3rd. This tangible marker of your oversight, etched into metal, fills you with a quiet satisfaction. The boiler room's massive wheels spin again, carrying power through the leather belt shafts overhead, and you test the hissing pressure gauges. Each needle sits squarely on the green safe zone. 8:45 a.m. Boiler flange MER B12. Replaced. Tested to 120 psi. No further leak detected. Securing the yard gate and tool store. Next, you inspect the main gate's new threshold. Heavy oak, laid flush with the cobbles, treated with tar to repel water, and secured with iron spikes beneath. The tool store's door bears a new padlock, stamped Yale in Town. Its steel shackles indented by little more than friction, not prying. You test both, sliding and lifting with satisfaction. 9:15 a.m. Main gate threshold replaced. Tool store lock upgraded. Tom arrives yawning, hat askew. He claps you on the shoulder. You did good, Will. The lads are already humming about no more rustlers. You smile, thinking of the night's early scare. Reflection on a city's invisible defenses as the yard hums back to life. Workers filing in, steam rising, hammers clattering. You linger at the edge of the action. You watch a teenager wipe sweat from his brow as he hauls steel beams. A foreman checks the boiler gauge. A clerk opens the tool store to fetch wrenches for the assembly line. Your night's diligence restored their tools, their safety, and their livelihoods. Yet you also recognize that these defenses, flanges, locks, gate thresholds, payroll integrity are ephemeral. Each night, new threats will emerge. Opportunistic thieves, covert sabotage, hidden leaks, sparks and coal dust. Your lantern, the whistle's shrill call, and the sap rope's binding gave you agency in the dark. But prevention's demand constant renewal. A city ennobled by industry is equally vulnerable to neglect. If one watchman can guide the yard through a single night's perils, how many watchmen must stand sentinel to keep the heart of Manchester beating? An unresolved question. As you shed your sap-stained coat and hang the lantern in the foreman's office, you consider your place in the grand tapestry of industry. The dawn brings applause from grateful engineers. The whistle on the factory chimney signals the new day. Yet you know no fortress is impregnable, no lock unpickable, no schedule unbreakable. And so, in the lull before the next shift report, one question echoes through your thoughts and the empty yard. In a world forged by the relentless pursuit of efficiency and power, whose vigilance will catch the next hidden threat, unseen steam, clandestine ledger, stray ember, before it transforms the bright promise of progress into the smoldering ruin of neglect. The English Channel's morning mist clings to the chalk cliffs of Dover like a veil, softening the orange glow of the signal station's early lantern. You arrive at your post. Signal station number 7, just before first light, carrying a leather satchel with charts, oil for the lamp, and a small notebook in which you record every passing vessel and each semaphore message. Your name is Eleanor Nell Cartwright, and as the day's first female signalman in this district, you bear the weight of tradition and the scrutiny of men who doubt your place atop these wind-swept heights. Yet you carry your family's legacy of service with steady hands and clear eyes. Your grandmother relayed messages through the War of 1812. Your father served at Gibraltar. Today, you continue on, scanning the horizon for friend or foe. The station's whitewashed walls, trimmed in weathered blue, gleam damply after last night's drizzle. A narrow stair of granite steps leads to the flat roof, where 2 towering poles stand, each topped with a pair of wooden arms hinged at right angles. These semaphore arms When set to the correct position, spell out letters and numbers visible at 20 nautical miles by telescope or by sturdy binoculars. The station's roof juts out over the cliff's edge, offering an unbroken view of the channel in both directions. You open the small wooden door and enter the lamp room, a cramped space no larger than a ship's cabin. Oil lamps line a narrow shelf, their brass fittings tarnished with salt spray. On a central beam hangs the semaphore control lever, connected by chain to the arms outside. Your first responsibility is to light the lamp that illuminates the station's clockwork mechanism on the hour so that you maintain synchrony with adjacent stations at Folkestone and Calais. Your hands are unsteady as you fill the lamp's reservoir with purified whale oil, leaving no air bubble that might cause sputtering. You trim the cotton wick to a precise quarter-inch height, too tall, and the flame smokes, obscuring the mechanism. Too short, and it winks out in the gusts that swirl through the open windows. With a match struck on a flint plate, you coax the angle of flame into a steady cone of golden light. The lamp glows beneath the clock face, its brass hands catching the lantern's shine. You consult the station's regulation log, a slim octavo volume in which successive signalmen have noted every maintenance check, every misalignment, every minute's deviation from Greenwich Mean Time. Here, your grandmother's spidery handwriting records lamp inspections dating back to 1854. You find today's entry, May 12th, 1875, 4:59 a.m. Lamp lit, wick adjusted, reservoir full, flame stable. Satisfied, you lock the door and ascend the thin stair to the roof platform. A biting wind drives mist inland, stinging your cheeks. You pull your woolen scarf tighter and raise the semaphore arms to the all-clear position. 10 o'clock for both poles, arms forming a vertical line indicating operational. The clicking of ratchets signals readiness. Your station stands alert. Below, the white lighthouse beam arcs across the swell of water. Behind you, the dark silhouette of Dover Castle rises against the sky. Its medieval walls have watched foreign fleets for centuries. In front, the calm water holds only a single steamboat drifting toward Calais, its funnel puffing a thin plume of coal smoke, waiting for the hour's first official time signal, a bell from the nearby church tower. You survey your charts. Today, 5 messages have been scheduled. 2 merchant convoys departing from Newcastle, the royal yacht's expected passage, a naval squadron returning from maneuvers, and a distress signal from a floundering fishing smacker off Folkestone. You brace yourself. A missed message could delay naval commands, cause diplomatic embarrassment, or cost lives at sea. At 5 a.m. on the dot, the church bell tolls 5 times. You swing the clockwork mechanism's lever, and a small brass hammer strikes a bell within the lantern room, echoing through the station. Your logbook records the exact minute. You return to the lever and set it for the first scheduled message, flag code B14, the sign for Newcastle convoy departing. You move the left arm to position 2 and the right arm to position 8. Pause, then to 1 and 4 in succession, maintaining each pose for 3 seconds so that the ship's lookouts see a clear, oscillating semaphore. Through your spyglass, you catch the contour of 3 collier brigs slipping southward. Their decks bustle, with crew hauling lines, and magnified flags flutter at masts bearing the same B14 signal. You lower the arms to rest, then note in your log, 5:03 a.m., B14 transmitted, Newcastle convoy sighted, confirmed. Feeling the chill deepen, you wrap your scarf and scan the horizon. At 5:30, you prepare to signal the royal yacht. This is a delicate duty. The yacht's captain has strict orders for discretion. The code, R2, reserved for royal vessels, must be handled precisely. You reset the arms, left to position 1, right to 7, R, then left to 2, right to 3, 2. Each transition is deliberate, smooth, and authoritative. You watch the yacht's slender hull emerge through haze. Its flags dip in acknowledgement. Your entries stack neatly in the log. 5:33 a.m. R2 transmitted. Royal Yacht HMY Victoria confirmed. Not every watchman gets to greet royalty, and a smile flickers across your face. But duty quickly shifts as you realize a naval signal from Folkestone is due at 6 a.m. Messages cross the channel in both directions. Synchronization must be perfect. You check your pocket watch. Its face, refined by chronometer inspection only last month, reads 5:58. You wait for the clockwork cue, then transmit the squadron's return code. Moments later, a cluster of gray hulls appears on the horizon, frigates steaming into home waters, their guns glinting. Your final task before the tide of traffic begins is to stand watch for distress signals. By 6:30 a.m., a yellow flag bearing a black swirl, the code for vessel in peril, flies from the Folkestone station's pole. You respond with code D5 and ready the shore lifeboat crew by ordering the coastal guard across the cliffs. Within minutes, a puff boat appears, a small steam tug dispatched to assist. You wave your arms in semaphore, guiding their course. 3 pulses for D, 5 for 5. The rescue vessel's portholes shine. A rope ladder drops toward a bobbing boat in the swell. You breathe, proud that swift signaling inspired prompt action. As the tide of morning traffic arrives, packet boats, fishing smacks, grain freighters, your duty shifts to maintaining logs and reporting to the station master. At 7 a.m., the station door swings open and Mr. Blackley's voice calls down the stairs. Good work, Miss Cartwright. All messages clear. You descend, clench your satchel of charts, and prepare to brief the station master on each transmitted code, each vessel's course, and the successful rescue at Folkestone. Before you step inside, you stand on the roof's edge one last time. The sun lifts above the channel, its rays cutting through mist to ignite the water's surface. Cliffs rise like sentinels, and below you, the vast sea presses its gray expanse toward distant shores. The signal arms stand silent now, at rest for another cycle. In that moment, you reflect on the trust placed in your shoulders and the thin strands of light and semaphore that hold together empires, commerce, and human lives. As you close the roof hatch, one question lingers in your mind. If a single misaligned semaphore arm can leave fleets blind to command and mariners adrift, how many messages go unseen in the quiet hours, lost signals that shape history's tides without ever reaching harbor? By mid-morning, the channel's mist lifts entirely, replaced by a brisk sea breeze that rattles the station's weather vane. Having reported the Royal Yacht and the Naval Squadron, you now turn your attention to the routine signals and the unexpected emergencies that define a watchman's craft. The station master, Mr. Blackley, has given you a list of scheduled transmissions for the next 2 hours. Merchant convoys inbound from Le Havre and Ostend, a pilot cutter crossing from Calais, and the routine weather report to the Admiralty station at Greenwich. Yet beneath these ordinary duties lies the potential for drama. A collier might founder on hidden shoals, a messenger lugger could require medical aid, or a spy vessel might skirt the coast under cover of haze, coordinating daybreak traffic. At 7:15 a.m., you lift your hand to the semaphore lever and set the arms for L7 to announce the Le Havre convoy. The daily codebook orders a 2-second hold for each semaphore position, separated by 3-second gaps. You count silently. 1, 2, shift arm. 1, 2, shift arm. Hold. Down below, through your binoculars, you see the distinctive white hulls of fishing smack escorts clustered around coal-laden brigs. As the flag code is acknowledged by the leading vessel's signalman, you lower the arms and note in your book, 7:17 a.m., L7 transmitted, Le Havre convoy, confirmed, 7 vessels. Less than 10 minutes later, the outgoing pilot cutter appears off the eastern bluff. Its single mast bears the code P3, indicating pilot service departure. You signal A9 in return, a request for ship's draft and cargo manifest, so that the Dover pilot may advise on safe passage. The cutter's pilot hoists an answering pennant, and you log 7:26 a.m., A9 transmitted. Pilot cutter draft a 12-tube, Ftuda cargo, sugar. These routine exchanges form the steady hum of maritime commerce. Yet in their steadiness lies a vital promise that every vessel's identity and intention will flow across the channel like water, binding ports in a web of trust and information. The sudden SOS from the east at 7:40 a.m. The semaphore arms rest at all clear when a sudden cry splits the salty air. From the Folkestone station to your east, 5 rapid flashes of the upper arm followed by 3 of the lower form the code SOS, the new universal distress call. You catch the pattern in an instant, heart thudding. You snap the arms to H1, the code for acknowledged distress. Hold, hold. Then shift to R0, code for rescue required. Instantly, Folkestone Station's arms droop, and across the water, you see the pitiful outline of a smack listing badly, its sails torn like ragged sails from a storm. Your mind races through protocol. Summon the lifeboat, alert the Coast Guard, and notify the harbor master at Ramsgate. You pull the station's alarm bell, the single heavy clapper you never expected to use. Its clang echoes across the cliffs, rousing the signalmen to the east and west. Then you telegraph by Morse lamp to the Castle Signal Station, requesting the steam tug HMS Cormorant and the Dover lifeboat to proceed to coordinates Dover Breakwater plus 2.5 miles east. Within moments, semaphore responses flash back, Cormorant dispatched, and lifeboat under tow. You record 7:42 a.m., SOS received, distress acknowledged, rescue vessels alerted. You remain glued to the horizon through your glass, watching the churning wake of the tug and the bobbing lifeboat. Minutes pass like hours. The listing smack heels over, waves crashing across her deck. Faintly, you hear the rhythm of oar and steam whistle, and then the lifeboat's canvas awning is visible as it nears. A cheer rises in your chest, and you lower the arms to S9, the code for all clear, rescue in progress, midwatch weather. Report, no sooner is the rescue underway than the Admiralty Station at Greenwich awaits your weather report for 8 a.m. Your barometer and thermometer, mounted inside the lamp room, yield 2960 in HG and 58 degrees F. You also note barometric tendency, rising slowly, wind northwest at 15 knots, slight sea. You transmit code W18 for weather report follows, and then use the numeric flags to send the precise readings. Your arms click through 2960, 58, and W, 15, and SLT, slight C. in a brisk, practiced cadence. Across the water, the Greenwich station light replicates your flags. Confirmation. You log 8:20 a.m. W18 transmitted. Barometer 2960. Inaj. Temp 58 to go. Wind and we're 15 can. Slight sea. As you lower the arms, the channel's surface brightens, sunlight fracturing on the waves. The rescue vessels have the smack in tow, but the memory of her healing hull tugs at your conscience. Seafarers are perchance safest under your watch, yet still at the mercy of unseen currents and hidden shoals. A diplomatic message. Interrupted by 8:30 a.m., the Queen's steamer, HMY Victoria, is expected to exchange a secret diplomatic cipher with Calais via semaphore, an elite duty granted only to the cross-channel signal service's most trusted operators. Station number 7 is not part of that network, but rumors say you may intercept the code inadvertently. Indeed, at 8:28 a.m., you see the code bank pumping through the air. 3 flashes of upper arm, 1 of lower, 2 of upper, an unfamiliar pattern. You hesitate, recalling strict orders. Do not record or divulge royal ciphers. Only relay them upward. You set your arms to X0, the code for message for Station Cross, and signal the press station at Dover Castle. The pattern ceases, replaced by a brisk acknowledgement flag. You note only 8:30 a.m. Received signal for relay to XR0, message forwarded to Castle. You scribble in your log, regal message intercepted. Compliance with protocol upheld. No recording of content. Your respect for secrecy of state steeps in your blood. Some whispers are too perilous to share, even within the trusted circles of semaphore rods. The unsettling silence as the tide of morning vessels resumes, ferries to Boulogne, tramp steamers outbound with ballast. Your station falls into a deceptive calm. No new distress, no clandestine code, no surprise convoy. You pace the roof, noting the cliff's bird colony wheeling overhead, the distant foghorn of the Admiralty tug, and the glimmer of nets cast from Folkestone's fishing boats. Yet despite the flurry of 7 a.m. duties, a residual tension lingers. The code's flicker in mid-message haunts you. Was that hush deliberate? A signal censored because of its political peril? And though the channel rescue succeeded, the risk of another smack foundering under unannounced mist remains. Your watch's success both eases your pride and quickens your pulse. The station's rods, arms, and brass clockwork are only as reliable as the hands that maneuver them. As 9 a.m. approaches, Mr. Blackley descends for the day's debrief. You stand by the lamp room door, ink-stained logbook in hand, ready to brief him on each incident. Your arms ache from numerous lever pulls. Your eyes feel gritty from salt spray, and yet you feel a surge of purpose. Each click of semaphore secured commerce, averted disaster, upheld secrets. Before you step inside, you jot a final note for this watch. 8:42 a.m. Smack in tow by tug and lifeboat. D5 rescue confirmed. 9 US border a.m. End watch. All scheduled transmissions complete. No additional distress signals. You lower the semaphore arms to the rest position, both horizontal, and glance southward, where Calais heights gleam faintly across the water. The channel stretches calm now, but beneath its surface, currents swirl, tides shift, and unseen dangers lurk. In that lingering hush, you pose the question that shadows every watch. When each semaphore arm falls silent at the day's shift, what messages vanish between stations? Lost codes that could alter fleets' fates, alliances, or even the course of nations, never to be logged in any watchman's book. With that thought, you cross the threshold into the lamp room. ready to pass the log and the lantern to your relief and to rest, if only for an hour, before the next watch begins. The end of your mid-morning debrief signals the hour of highest maritime traffic. Ferries, freighters, naval dispatch boats, and private yachts all traverse the channel in a steady stream. As you hand the logbook to Mr. Blackley and extinguish the lamp in the clockwork room, you feel the day's adrenaline ebb. But the station's work is not yet done. Late afternoon brings shifting weather and the hour final scheduled transmissions, the evening tide call, the summary of daily vessel counts, and one last distress watch as darkness approaches. Evening tide call and vessel summary. At 5 p.m., you light the clockwork lamp again and wind the mechanism for the tide call, a critical service that informs harbor pilots when to bring incoming ships safely past the hidden reefs below the cliffs. You record the time and sea level from the gauge in the cliffside well. 5:45 p.m. Tide call scheduling. Sea level 4.8 ft above chart datum. Expected high tide at 5:40 p.m. You signal T4 to the Folkestone and Calais stations, then relay HT5 4.8, indicating high tide scheduled at 5:40 4.8 ft. Fishermen on small boats near Folkestone return your acknowledgement with 2 flashes of their mast-mounted arm, and at the Calais bell, you glimpse black silhouettes reciprocating your flags. The shared knowledge flows like water itself, preventing groundings and ensuring commerce continues unimpeded by nature's rhythms. Next, at 5:15 p.m., you compile the daily vessel summary. Le Havre Convoy, 7 vessels. Ostend, Convoy, 5 vessels. Pilot cutter, 1 vessel Royal. Yacht, 1 vessel. Naval, Squadron, 4 vessels. Merchant traffic, counted visually. 23 vessels. Distress calls handled. 1. With careful strokes, you enter these into the station log's summary table. This record will inform the Admiralty's Channel Patrol, guiding resource allocation and strategy for the coming night watch. You note in the margin, summary complete, traffic moderate, no new distress signals after rescue. A fading light, the final watch preparations. As dusk deepens, you prepare for the station's final watch from 6 p.m. until midnight. You refill the lamp's reservoir, trim a fresh wick, and test the mechanism's beat, each tick-tock echoing the channel's own pulse. You check the semaphore arm's pivots, greasing them sparingly with whale oil to maintain smooth, precise movements. Finally, you mount the arms to all clear, vertical, and affix the station's signal flag to the wind-swept halyard, a red pennon quartered with white to mark your signal station's code on passing ship's charts. Below you, the Dover lifeboat returns triumphant from the morning's rescue, and you record its safe return. 5:55 p.m. Lifeboat back, crew disembarked. Thanks recorded. You descend the steps to the clock room and peer through its porthole at the twilight sea, already studded with lights from Gouy ferry windows and distant port beacons. No further SOS signals hang in the air, but you know that darkness still beckons the unwary and the unscrupulous. An unscheduled distress and a final rescue. At 8:22 p.m., your watch is interrupted by a sharp rap on the lamp room door. It's the assistant signalman from Folkestone, arriving breathless. Miss Cartwright, signal from Folkestone, X0 restart. Prearranged code, pilot cutter disabled 18 miles east. No bridge to signal until now. You exchange grim looks. The code X00 restart was meant for emergency reinitialization of the channel rescue net, signaling that A rescue tug and lifeboat are required again. You swing the semaphore arms into X0, then D5 for distress and R0 for rescue required. Back down the cliffside, the Dover lifeboat once more readies, and a steam tug responds via code. Through your binoculars, you see the pilot cutter's lantern dancing on high waves, her mast raking the night sky, her hull at peril. You hold the rescue code for a full 5 seconds, then lower the arms. Moments later, a beam from the tug's searchlight sweeps across the channel, and you confirm the cutter's crew scrambled into a lifeboat. Your pen flies in the log. 8:25 p.m. X0, D5, R0 transmitted. Rescue vessels dispatched. Pilot cutter crew safe. Transferred to tug by 9 p.m. This unscheduled drama tests your mettle as the last twilight fades, reinforcing that a signalman's watch never truly ends, even when the schedule seems complete. The midnight final reports. As clocks in the station room strike midnight, you make your way to the forecasted weather chart for the night. Low-lying clouds and predicted southwest gale winds. You flag W24 with readings 29 to 40 in HG barometer and 63 degrees. Wind SW25 KN, rough sea. Satisfied, you log the final weather report. 12 AM. W24 transmitted. Barometer 2940 in HG. Temp 63 degrees. Wind SW25 KN, rough sea. You then complete the station's night watch summary. Total distress calls. 2 morning and evening. Rescues. Affected. 2 traffic vessels counted. 45 maintenance checks. Lamp, pivots, tide gauge. Unscheduled interruptions. Restart. Code X00, locking away the station log. You hang the lamp in its cradle and step out onto the roof. Stars emerge as the gale begins to howl, though the semaphore arms rest motionless against the dark sky. You listen to the wind's lament and the roar of distant breakers. A final nocturne for your weary vigil. A reflective departure. At 12:30 a.m., the Folkestone relief signalman arrives to take over. You lower the lantern together and slip into the lamp room for a quiet handover. You show him the watch's notes, confirm the tide's next cycle, and entrust the station keys. He offers a salute and a simple, "Well done tonight," and you feel the weight of responsibility lift from your shoulders, only to return with the next watch. As you descend the granite steps toward the station's living quarters, you pause at the doorway. The semaphore arms, silhouetted against a moonlit sky, stand ready, poised between rest and action. In the hush of Dover's cliffs, you ponder the day's litany of signals and rescues, codes and ciphers. If each semaphore arms motion can marshal fleets, rescue crews, and diplomatic whispers, what unspoken messages lie between those precise angles? What lost signals slip silently past the horizon, shaping events beyond any watchman's reach, with that unanswered thought lingering like a ghost in the mist? You step inside for a brief rest before dawn's next shift calls you once more to stand sentinel at the edge of England. And so, the oil lamps dim, the chimneys quiet, the factory gates close, and the signalman's lantern fades into the dawn. History is never just dates and names. It's the quiet lives, the hidden labors, and the small acts of vigilance that carried the world forward while no one was watching. Which of tonight's stories lingered with you the most? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear. Until our next journey through time, may your mind be calm, your dreams untroubled, and may history watch over your sleep.